So quantity values within Pimcore are located here under settings, data objects, and quantity values. Here you can see that we already have in the demo a couple of quantity value units defined, and that's basically what the quantity value is used for defining conversion factors for certain units. So for example, you can see that I already have the kilogram defined here. I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to make the unique identifier as G. This will set the ID. You can also set the abbreviation. The long name would be gram. The base unit for our gram will be kg or kilogram. The conversion factor here, you'd probably think that it's 1,000, but no, it's 1 divided by 1,000, so 0.001. It would be 1,000 if the base unit is gram and you're defining it on a kilogram. Then it would be 1,000. The conversion offset is a number which can go in minus or in plus. It basically means that if you wanted to add a certain number to the conversion factor when it's calculated, you would do it here. An example for using the offset would be if you have Fahrenheit and Celsius is the base unit. You would have a factor of 1.8 and the offset would be 32, since the calculation for Fahrenheit from Celsius is Celsius times 1.8 plus 32. That's just an example of how you can use this. Really depends on what you need converting. And here you also have a converter service. If you go to the documentation under number types and data objects, you can see that this converter service, it needs to be a class which will implement the quantity value converter interface. What it basically does is mostly used for, let's say, money currencies, where you would have an external API, and through this service you could periodically update the factors / offsets in the quantity value units. So that's basically it. Let's go back to Pimcore. So we don't need to put an offset here or the converter service. So let's update it. Now what we'll do is go to settings, data objects, and classes. Let's go to our test object and add a new field. Here under number, you'll find quantity value. So let's call it test, test QV. Down here, you can see that you have some kind of additional settings for this. You can set the decimal precision. So let's set it to 2. Default unit. The default value, you can set that at 0. The default unit would be kilogram. And you can also define the valid units for this quantity value input. And here you can check the automatic conversion. What this does is, if you would for some reason put in a value like 2 kilograms and you wanted to change the unit from kilograms to grams, it would automatically convert. If you added the conversion factor here, of course, it would automatically convert the kilograms to 2,000 grams. So let's save this, close it, and now if we, let's say, go to one of our objects, we can see that we have a new field. Right now, it's not set to the default value, which should be 0 and kg. The reason for that being is that this object was made prior. If I were to create a new object, so let's say, I don't know, let's call this test 2. You can see that our default value is 0 and our default unit is kilogram. So let's just add a title here, first name, last name, it doesn't really matter. And let's put in 2 kilograms. Now, if we go to grams, you can see that it automatically changes to grams. I'm going to leave it on kilograms. So what if, for example, you would need to, let's say, convert it inside of a controller, service method, whatever. What I mean is if you would need to convert it inside a chunk of code. So let's go to our test action that we usually use. One thing that we are going to need and what we're going to inject is the unit conversion service, which is a class that we can use to convert a certain quantity value to another unit. So let's add it here. Let's add the class private unit conversion service that we have here, and call it unit conversion service. We can use it inside of this, as I said. So I'm just going to dump and die a result that we are going to get. Let's just quickly see what the ID of the object is. So 1134. We're just going to fetch it first. So test qv equals our class name of the object is test, get by ID, and we said 1134, 1134, and now we're going to get the result by using the unit conversion service. This service has a method called convert. As the first attribute, you would put in the original quantity value, and in our case it would be test qv get test qv, which is the quantity value field inside of this object. And now we need to fetch the unit in which we want to convert, which in our case would be, we want to convert it in grams, or I'm sorry, 2 grams. Here we have a couple of options. Since we created this quantity value unit, we defined the ID as G. We also defined the abbreviation by G. Usually you would fetch by the abbreviation, but since I defined the ID as G, I'm going to use that. So in our code, get by ID, and type in G. Now, since we dumped and died here, so we can just go to our route, which calls the method where we put the logic. And we can see that we have a quantity value returned with the properties of value of 2000, which is correct since here on the object we have 2 kilograms. If you only wanted to get the value, you can just call the method get value, and here you would get 2000. Hope the video helped you, and if you want to learn more about Pimcore, you can check out my Udemy course called Learning Pimcore from Zero to Hero, where I will show you all of the steps from creating a project, buying and setting up a server, as well as deploying your project. Hope to see you there.